Debating Deion Sanders' fit with the Dallas Cowboys. Ladies and gentlemen, the video behind us is Get Up. That's ESPN's morning show. And the conversation is Deion Sanders as the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. Now, I'm not going to lie to you, ladies and gentlemen. If you'd have asked me this a year ago, 2 years ago, I would have said this is the craziest thing I've ever heard. No way. But as I sit here and think about it, I'm not going to lie. It kind of makes sense. And it kind of makes sense for a bunch of different reasons. And we'll talk about all of those. I can't get over the star. Look at the centering on the star. Why is it like that? Why is the gray box? Why is part of the star sticking out of the side? The other side's not sticking out. The top's sticking out of the gray box, or the bottom's not. What's going on here? But the reason I think it'll work is because it checks a few boxes for Dallas. It makes them very relevant, which Jerry Jones cares about. The Dallas Cowboys, I believe, are the most expensive brand or team in all of sports. If they aren't, they certainly are one of the highest. They haven't really been relevant. I know they've won games, but they've been kind of a boring team. They've kind of lost some of the allure. Dallas, that star doesn't mean what it used to mean. Deion will bring back the pomp and the circumstance. Deion also will do something that's very difficult to do. Deion Sanders will make Dallas likable. People like Deion. People like what Deion says. They like to follow him. They cheer for him. Dallas will be America's team in a way again. What Deion also does is he fits this current CEO mold of what's successful in the NFL. Deion is not an X's and O's guy, and he'll be the first one to tell you that. What he is really good at is building a staff and kind of delegating out those roles. He built a hell of a staff at Colorado, and he would build a hell of a staff in Dallas. Deion would not want to call plays. Deion wouldn't expect to call plays. Deion would be the CEO and kind of the manager of the team. Well, just so happens that is probably the most popular or most successful form of coach right now. You look at Baltimore, you look at Detroit, you look at Philadelphia, all CEOs, all delegate out to the coordinators, and the CEO just kind of runs the team. The only question I would have is how he would motivate the players. In college, Deion is very Saban-esque, where he asks the players to believe in him, right? Trust me, I am this guiding figure that will get you where you want to go. And he kind of is a mentor to them, and it works in college. Saban was the exact same way. Two different kind of routes, but the exact same way, right? Making men out of boys, the same old cliches that you hear. I don't know if he could do that in the pros, but I also think he would change. I also think he would pivot to less of that, but still a motivator, still get his team to play hard for him. So I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think this would be a pretty good hire for Dallas. I think this would be worth it. I think this would be worth a shot. Now, the only other question is, like, for Deion, I know he's mentioned he wants to, if he went to the pros, it would be to coach Shedeur. Well, I don't think Dallas is going to do that. Dallas has Dak Prescott making $400 million, I think, every single snap. So I'm not sure what they would do there. I'm not sure if Deion would be interested in going to Dallas and coaching Dak and doing all that stuff and potentially coaching against his son and all that. So that part could be kind of weird. But as far as like Dallas, I think Dallas could do a whole lot worse than Deion.
Boys, we know this is Deion Sanders. Jerry Jones talked to Deion Sanders earlier this week about possibly coaching the Cowboys. Where that ends up is really anybody's guess at this point. They are interviewing Kellen Moore, the Eagles offensive coordinator, virtually today. They have an interview set up this weekend with former Jets head coach Robert Saleh. Leslie Frazier is on their list. Liam Cohen is on their list.
Leslie Frazier.
But Greeny, I know you want to talk about this guy, Deion Sanders, who is apparently on the list as far as Jerry Jones is concerned, and we'll see where that ends up landing.
I want to hear Stephen A. talk about it. Yesterday, Stephen A. for you.
How is Leslie Frazier getting head coaching interviews? What's going on
Those of you who missed it, opened First Take with a message for Jerry Jones.
Howdy! How do you do? Yes, I'm in someplace other than Dallas, Texas, but it's on a lot of people's minds because I heard my boy Prime Time is snowmobiling in the mountains. let me tell you something, baby. It don't matter whether you got on a cowboy hat, whether you're snowboarding, or whatever the case may be. When prime...
Could you imagine 7:48 Central, all right, my time, Central time. You flip on the TV, and you're watching, you're eating your Cinnamon Toast Crunch, you're getting ready for work or school or whatever, and this is what's going on. Like, this is nuts. This is absolutely crazy that this is on the airwaves. I mean, ESPN, just call me. Call me. I will save the entire state. I will save the entire brand. Give me a call.
Time is making news, and it's associated with the Dallas Cowboys. You know what you got to say to yourself? Come on, Jerry, get it together. The playoffs are going on without you. Come on, Jerry, you know you need a new man in that building. Get it together. Come on, Jerry, do what the people are clamoring for you to do, because when you do that, you can end up someplace like this, even with a cowboy hat on, you hear?
Okay, Stephen A., performance arts extraordinaire. So there's so many pieces to this. And the most interesting one of it, and Mike Tannenbaum, all kidding aside, I mean, anyone who's paying attention is aware you're assisting the Jets with their head coaching search. At the end of the day, these things come down to one person making a decision, right? So it's not about whether we think it makes sense, all that kind of stuff. It's going to come down to Jerry Jones deciding, does he like the idea or not?
It's not about whether anyone else in the Dallas Cowboys facility thinks it makes sense. It's up to Jerry Jones. Look, I continue to think this is not the likely outcome, right? Like a lot has to happen. Deion at Colorado, he's got some roots down there and has done well. But the fact that they've talked is not insignificant. It is Jerry that's going to make this decision. He could theoretically sell Deion on this opportunity and get him out of Colorado. So the thing people have to understand is if you go back a week and you ask Jerry Jones who the coach of the Cowboys is going to be next year, he would have said Mike McCarthy. Like this, they thought they would get a deal done with McCarthy. They didn't. So their search couldn't begin until early this week. And as of now, this is part of it.
Yeah, I agree. This time of year, you hear words like fit and alignment. It's very unique there. It's an owner who's a GM who has a post-game press conference, a radio hit every week. So it has to be a fit for that culture and that situation.
It kind of is like the perfect storm, though, of the fit and the culture, where there isn't a coach on the planet that is more, or a coaching candidate on the planet that is more in tune with that world. Of, the owner has a podcast, the GM has a podcast, he's doing a radio show. Like, if there's one guy that would be totally fine with being thrust into that, it's Deion. If there's one guy who could probably corral Jerry Jones' ego a little bit, it's Deion. And if there's one guy who I think Jerry would kind of relent to, kind of say, like, okay, I'm not going to be the same Jerry Jones that I was with Mike McCarthy, it would be Deion. And Deion understands Dallas. He understands Jerry. I think even that is kind of a weird, perfect fit for the situation. Much more than Kellen Moore. Like, I love Kellen Moore. But imagine, Kellen Moore, I don't think, is the coach that wants to deal with Jerry Jones' radio show, who wants to deal with Jerry Jones' podcast, who wants to deal with Jerry Jones' sound bites or whatever. I think Deion would not only be fine with him doing that, but I think he would almost relish the chance at kind of dealing with it.
In some ways, you feel like these two guys would fit together, and if it's ever going to happen, now would be the time.
Yeah. I mean, this would be strictly a football. This isn't about selling tickets or back pages. Deion Sanders is a legitimate football coach who has.
It's kind of both, right? And Jerry would be lying to you if he said that wasn't involved. He cares about the Dallas Cowboys brand and the Dallas Cowboys meaning something, and the Dallas Cowboys being America's team and being relevant. And Jerry has a Texas-sized ego, no doubt about it. So the fact that he could win the offseason, the fact that he could be on the front page of every website and newspaper in town, the fact that he could parade out Deion Sanders and have these big unveilings and the hype and the pomp and the circumstance, I guarantee you that goes into it, whether he would admit it or not. But that, along with the football, all goes into it.
Proven himself at everything he's ever done.
You know him. I mean,
he was a teammate
of
mine for 2 years. Listen, people don't get confused with thinking Deion is like, some new school type of guy. He's an old school principal guy. And what does the Dallas Cowboys need? Accountability. They've been living off of those 3 titles that they had in the 90s. Well, who better to come in than a guy that was part of that building process?
Yeah, I mean, don't forget, like, the Houston Texans were created in 2002. The Houston Texans have more playoff wins than the Dallas Cowboys since then. So, yeah, Dallas has been living off of the 90s for a long time now. Okay? Dallas and Purple Ketchup, both living off the heydays and the glory days of the 90s. Deion is, like Bart said, he is a old school kind of guy. And he is a guy that holds his players accountable. I just saw an article where he has a new list of rules for the students at Colorado. I know you can't wear slides. You can't. You have to sit in the front row of your class. Like he has rules he institutes. He is a good man manager. He is a good CEO of a program. The question 2 years ago was, can Deion coach? And Deion has kind of said, I'm not really worried about that. Right? Like I'm worried about the structure, the foundation, the culture, the identity. I'll let my assistants coach. And that works. That really works right now. I'm going to say something crazy. Deion is not as far away from Dan Campbell style-wise as you think. Very similar. Very similar how they would approach. Deion would approach building Dallas like Dan Campbell built Detroit. I'll tell you that. And how Nick Sirianni is running Philadelphia. Very similar. How John Harbaugh is running Baltimore. Very similar. Very, very similar. So the only question I would have is, can he connect with the players the same way in the NFL as he does in college?
Process to help them get one of them chips. He can come in, and he's one of the very few players that can get the ear of the audience, and he can call guys out. And what could you say? If you want to build brands, that's who you talk to. He can be a resource for everybody in that locker room and everybody within that building.
Well, I think it's 2 different jobs that head coaches in Dallas have to do. You have to be able to manage the locker room, and you have to be able to manage the owner.
Yeah,
and I think that Deion Sanders can do that. It's not necessarily just about the X's and O's. Obviously, he knows and understands how to build a program when you look at Jackson State and also Colorado. But for Jerry Jones and Deion, it's having a voice that you value and respect. Someone needs to be able to have a conversation with Jerry, because you're never going to tell Jerry what to do, that Jerry, this could be best for our team, and have him value that. And now when you look at a CeeDee Lamb, go back to last year when Dan and we're talking about the tours. Who better to say, okay, here is how you handle what it is to be a Dallas Cowboy better than primetime Deion Sanders.
Right.
The thing about these 2 men.
And like I said, not only how you handle Dallas, but how you handle right now. Like how you handle life right now. How you handle social media. How you handle the podcast and press and all of that. Deion's kind of the guy to do that. And Dallas just so happens to have a defensive end who seems to care more about his podcast than getting pressures on the quarterback. So I don't know. I mean, like I said, I would have never guessed this 2 years ago. But as I'm sitting here right now thinking about it, everything kind of lines up to where this makes perfect sense.
There's no room that Deion Sanders is in where he's not the brightest light. There's no room that Jerry Jones is in where he's not the brightest light. How do they figure out a way to compromise when it comes to who is the biggest voice in this locker room? And I think that's what's most important.
I think the other part of this, you just made me think of it. Micah Parsons with all the podcasts. I mean, the Cowboys have far more podcasts than they have wins, in this past year anyway. I think that's the kind of thing, to your point, that Deion might be the one player or one of a very small handful of people who could walk into a room and say, guys, we're done with that.
No, he can't. Deion has a Tubi show right now.
Yeah, I don't think he wouldn't say we're done with that. He would know how to leverage it. He would know how to utilize it. He would know how to make it work. He wouldn't put a stop to it. That's the last thing he's doing. I don't know why Greeny said that. They have their social media handles on their jerseys at Colorado. He's not putting a stop to it, but he does know how to not corral it, but he does know how to utilize it and leverage it to the players' gain and to the team's gain. I also think other players, like Tyreek Hill, wants out of Miami, right? I'm not saying Tyreek would go to Dallas, but Deion going to Dallas all of a sudden makes Dallas kind of a destination. And it kind of makes Dallas this thing like it's like, I want to go play for Deion. I want to be a part of this. I want to be a part of this show. I want to be a part of this circus. So I think it checks a lot of boxes, ladies and gentlemen.
So, like, that's not going to happen. But the thing is, the thing that he won't do, though, he won't tell them not to have them, but he will tell them, do your job with excellence while having them. There's so many. This is a new age of player.
Probably can help him do it.
Yeah, it's a new age of player. So now Deion can go to them and say, okay, it's okay that we have these things. I understand these things, but Micah, what you can't say is this. What you can't do is this. You can't put us in this situation. I want you to shine, but shine in the right way.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, it depends on how you view the current NFL. But I really think the CEO way of coaching, unless you are a true X's and O's genius, unless you're Matt LaFleur, unless you're Sean McVay, unless you're Kyle Shanahan, the CEO style works. And I would have no issue with that if I was a Dallas Cowboys fan. So let me know what you think. Do you think Deion is a good fit in Dallas? Do you think this is all just kind of fugazi, or is it realistic? Let me know. Thank you very much for watching. I will see you in the next video.